Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine Mendoza and I did my disaster management plan on South Africa. What my paper and what this presentation will cover is the rationale and the history of the disaster management plan, the implementation pattern, the kinds of disasters that South Africa is specifically prone to and how they've planned for it, and who participates in the process, as well as how these disasters have shaped what their plan is today. Starting off with the history of South Africa's disaster plan, really, a disaster plan in the beginning was not a big concern for them. What they believed was that disasters were acts of nature and that in the end they were inevitable and couldn't be predicted or avoided. So they would just basically go with the flow. What happened, and that was it. Another thing about their history is they are one of the first developing countries to pass a disaster management plan and legislation. This also led into them having a wake-up call from Cape Town, which is a province in South Africa. It had a severe flood and they had no plan to recuperate or build back the city. So then this caused them to formulate what they now have, what they previously had and added on to, which is the Disaster Management Plan Act 57 of 2002. Since then they have made changes, and now they have the policy framework for disaster management in South Africa. Even though their official plan did start late, they had another plan in place. It was actually called the Civil Defense Plan, and this happened because of the bombings that the Germans were doing to London around the end of World War II, and they wanted to make sure that if anything happened, they had these steps to build themselves back up and go from there. Next is how South Africa what their approach is in this plan. There's actually two different types of approaches. We have the top down, which is basically where everyone gets their commands or their policies or decisions from the government, so from the top, and it's trickled down into provinces, cities, local communities. And then we also have the bottom up, which it's completely reversed. The communities and the provinces kind of formulate their own plans and they throw it back up to the central government of South Africa, and they kind of get more of a say in it. It's more community based. The approach that it seems like South Africa took would be the top down, and this was more effective for them because of the way they have everything set up. There's so many regions and provinces in South Africa, and honestly there are some that are much less developed than others, and they just felt it would be more efficient to have everyone given the same orders, opposed to some people having a plan and throwing the ideas back up, and they know that everyone knows what to do in these situations. On to the next thing is our disaster hazards and planning. So South Africa is prone to four main hazards / disasters that they have prepared themselves for. The first one would be our man-made disasters. This really is an umbrella term, but man-made could include industrial accidents. The South African industrial sectors, that includes the mining, manufacturing, and the petrochemicals. These all pose a risk for an industrial accident. they can result in chemical spills, explosions, fires, etc. So that's one of the big things they have. Also, another would be transportation accidents. This includes everything from the road, the railroads, and air transportation. All these can contribute to a man-made disaster in South Africa. How they prevent this is effective traffic management, driver's education, enforcement of safety regulations, and all these things are essential to reduce the occurrence of these things. And also, they do have a police force, so that also helps as well. Another one would be political instability. This can lead to social disruption, violence, and property damage. And these arise to socioeconomic inequalities, political tensions, and etc. So, how they prevent this is effective governance. They try to ensure peace and stability and protection of lives and properties. Those are all the man-made ones. Then, if you look, we also have flood and storms, droughts, wildfires, cyclones. These are all of our natural disasters. So, even though South Africa doesn't have like earthquakes or volcanic eruptions that are like extraordinary natural disasters, the disasters that they do have and they do experience actually hit them very hard. For the floods, they have a comprehensive flood management plan, and this addresses the risk of the floods, including early warning system, floodplain mapping, and protocols. And a reason behind these floods are all actually the storms and cyclones, which is why I put them together. They have established preparedness plans for this. Again, the early warning signs, they have evacuation plans, emergency shelters, everything in that nature. Then on the total opposite side, they also experience very bad droughts. They have a drought management plan. They emphasize water conservation measures and water resource management, just to mitigate the impacts of the water scarcity. And also, what goes hand in hand with these droughts is when the air is really hot and dry and there's no water, there's a drought. They also experience wildfires. For this, they have fire management, they have fire prevention campaigns, fire break construction, detection systems again, and the coordination of effective firefighting and post-fire recovery. And these are all the disasters that they are really prone to and they have accounted for in their disaster management plan. Next would be who is involved in their disaster management plan and what is their role. So I made a little table here and it goes to show you the organizations that are involved. Starting off with the non-governmental organization, we have the African Red Cross. It's primarily the same thing as the American Red Cross, and the American Red Cross does also help in these situations, but their goal is to eliminate the human suffering and worry during a disaster, and that's what they do in the face of an emergency, and they try to help those impacted with food, water, supplies, and medical attention. Next is the National Disaster Management Center. Their role in this is to guide and develop for the government's risk management policy and legislation, helping with the implementation of the plan when things are going on. Next is the provincial disaster management plan. Their job is to back up the National Disaster Management Center and to provide support to them as well, and they're really there for the provinces and the country. Next, we have the Municipal Disaster Management Center. They back up again the Provincial Disaster Management Center, along with the National Disaster Management Center. They try to provide direction for the implementation of disaster risk management policy and everything like that. Then lastly, we have the South African National Defense Force and the police. They assist with things like search and rescue, EMS, transportation of goods. They are also the law, so just like we have the law in whatever country you live in, it's basically the same thing. Traffic management, security, as well as helping with rebuilding the aftermath after any disaster or hazard that has happened. They're there for that. And that is my presentation. The goal of this presentation was to help show the overall improvement of the disaster resilience in South Africa. I think from their first plan, Act 57, to what they have now, it's exponential growth. And yeah.